As the clock strikes 7, the vibes alive. Inner circles here, where voices thrive. Turn on your screens, let the magic unfold. Listening and healing as stories are told. Come on, come on, this is your time. No topics too tough, just heed the calls. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. In a circle podcast where hearts unite. Sharing our truths, bringing hope to the light. Community strong, we're never alone. Together as one, we've created a home. With laughter and love, we break down the walls. No topics too tough, just heed the calls. From mental health woes to justice we seek. Together we rise for the strong and the meek. A safe space for all, let's lift every voice. So join the conversation, let's set the tone. In a circle podcast where love is well known.
Good evening, family, and welcome back to the Inner Circle podcast where voices are heard, cultures are honored, and conversations matter. I'm your host, Abe Kamara, and tonight we are stepping into a space that's complex, controversial, and deeply, deeply necessary. So, cultural appropriation versus appreciation. Where's the line? So, we live in a world that's more connected than ever before. Culture collide, blend, and inspire across borders, music, fashion, and even everyday language. But somewhere along the way, we must ask, where does culture sharing become culture stealing? Where is the line between appreciation and appropriation, right? As I said, I'm your host, Abe Kamara. I have my girl, Andrea, here with me tonight. So tonight, she and I are going to be tackling this topic. We are here to learn, as I would welcome to our audience out there. Two of us here just going to be learning. It's a loaded topic. When I first saw it, I said, oh man, how are we going to do this? But I think it is necessary considering the kind of environment and the world we live in today. So we're going to try our best to try to educate ourselves and also try to, educate our audience out there. You know what I mean? So it's a complex world today. We live in a world that, no matter what side you are on, right? It's so seems to be very divisive. There's the cancel culture, there's the anti-cancel culture. There's so many things out there, But tonight we'll be discussing cultural appropriation versus appreciation and where's the line. So again, I'm your host, Ib Kamara. Today is Thursday, March 27th. And Andrea, can you introduce
Yeah.
yourself quick to our audience and we can get started?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea, and I am excited to be here. Looking forward to a cushy topic.
Yeah. Definitely. So, folks, there is the Inner Cycle podcast. There is a community show. There is a movement. We try to come here 4 days a week to, provide to talk about topic like this right in our community because I think we live in a world. Sometimes some of the topic we discuss here on Inner Cycle podcast, some folks don't want to touch it and things like that. But I think it is very, very important for our community. So you can put a comment in the chat or call our number 817-600-1525 to be part of this conversation. Also, you can follow Inner Cycle Podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's a growing community, and you can also follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So please join this movement and let's make a difference in these United States. So, Andrea, man, when this topic, as I said, to me is very loaded. Cultural appropriation versus appreciation. Where's the line? Like, what comes to mind to you, right? Like, how will you like define it? In the layman terms of our people.
Yes, so this is a good question because I know what my version is and I had to kind of look it up, but just to
Mhm,
kind of set some grounding. So I'll start with cultural appreciation. So
mhm,
cultural appreciation is when someone seeks to understand and learn about another culture with respect, acknowledgement, and genuine interest. It also
mhm,
involves honoring traditions, participating with permission, and recognizing the cultural significance of practice. Now, when
mhm,
we think about cultural appropriation, the opposite side, this occurs when elements of a culture, often from historically marginalized communities, are used by someone outside of that culture without understanding, respect, or even acknowledgement. This can also perpetuate harmful stereotypes, like erasure of like a cultural meaning, and also
mhm.
it can also exploit communities.
How does that relate to our community? Is it like is it still appropriate today, right? I know is it still
Mhm.
appropriate today that we should be talking about cultural appropriation versus appreciation? Is that even necessary in today's environment, in today's world?
Absolutely, in my opinion, yes. Like,
Mhm,
I
mhm,
mean, I can think of a many different things within even the African culture that
mhm, mhm,
was appropriate. And I think the big thing right now, obviously, me being a business owner, the big thing right now is like the sponge, right? Every culture calls we call it kocha or sapo, whatever you want to call it.
mhm,
Now it's African exfoliating sponge. Everybody's doing it. Walmart has it. Who else has it? There's a bunch of just I call it the black market. There's a lot of people that have it. It's not even really made with the real nylon. It's made out of plastic, but they're seeing like the loofah. Now everybody's onto this African exfoliating sponge. They realizing the benefits of it. Now everybody wants a stake in it. So the loofah is kind of going down in value. Now you have places like in China that are
mhm,
making this, but like making it
mhm,
out of plastic. But
mhm.
unfortunately, Africans are not getting credit for what making this. This has been used for centuries, and
Yeah.
now people are just now wanting to jump on it. So yeah, it's an important topic. There's a lot of things that I would say just that the black community has made in the past as far as like
Mhm,
products
mhm,
or ideas, and we
mhm,
don't get credit for that. And so we very I would say we very rarely get the appreciation that we deserve. Yeah, people are starting to kind of be a little bit more woke, but I feel like you see
mhm.
that a lot more like with like kind of the older population, right?
Yeah.
Folks that are really into the diaspora and want to learn more and want to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
the culture are going back to Ghana, Liberia,
Mhm.
Nigeria, just kind of going back.
Yeah.
But appropriation, that's it's real out here. I mean,
Yeah.
we have
So,
white
yeah.
rappers, we have all types of things. We can go deep. I don't know how deep you
No,
want
no,
to.
no, definitely, definitely. Let me just hold you there. Though. Why do you think, like, blacks, Africans, right? African Americans don't get credit for some of the things they create or some of the things, like the product you just talked about, right? That Walmart is carrying, but, Africans are not getting credit for it. Why is that? Are we not taking the initiative to maybe, promote it or other folks start promoting it for it and say, oh, yeah, and they take it and adopt it? Why don't we get like the appreciation or why don't we get the credit for these things?
Yeah,
Why
I
why
feel
you
like
think that is?
that's a loaded question, and I feel like there's so many elements to that. But the
Mhm,
first thing that
mhm.
comes to mind is a lot of the times when it comes to like services and products per se.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think a lot of the times we're just uninformed. We're not informed about our rights. We're not educated about like copywriting and like getting personal or getting intellectual property. Like we're
okay,
not in that. And so like I
yeah,
feel like you hear stories like for example like I know like for example Jack Daniels. Everybody
yeah,
loves Jack Daniels, but that was
mhm.
actually created by a black man, right? It
Okay,
was created by
okay,
a black man, and then
uh-huh,
I don't know if it was like his slaveholder or whoever, but I know it was a white man that took that and ran with it. And look
mm,
at their
mm,
family has been benefiting off that for years. I'm not saying he didn't necessarily know how to protect himself, but obviously back then he probably didn't even have many rights. But like think
yeah,
about today, I think about a lot of black business owners. Sometimes we are negligent in really protecting our intellectual property or protecting our property, such as like trademarking things, such as copywriting things. I can even talk even I can even speak to my own uh being like just being a business owner. I created a
yeah,
t-shirt a couple years ago during the pandemic. I didn't
mhm,
copyright it or anything, trademark it or anything like that.
yeah,
Nobody else was out there selling it. There's someone out there that's selling my same t-shirt with the same design, making numbers.
Okay.
self protect your designs, and so
Yeah.
that was what we learned. So
Yeah. But the thing though, you see, now I think you raised an interesting point. I think the black community, African Americans, Africans, we become
mhm,
too complacent. We become too lazy when it comes to these things, right? It's like, oh, you know what? It's like we are not taking initiatives. We are not like being forceful, right? When it comes to
yeah,
these things. So at the end of the day, if is someone out there who's innovative, who's
mhm,
driven and sees something is selling or has popularity and feel that
mhm,
there's no protection, they're going to take it and run with it. I think
yeah,
right instead of us always right trying to maybe switch blame or try to blame
mhm,
other folks for appropriating what it is that we create or that we bring about and things like that. I think we need to start being very very forceful when it comes to these things because hey man,
mhm,
is that we live in a competitive world, right? The world we
yeah,
live in right now is very competitive. Everyone wants to what do something, right? It's like so, but the black community sometimes I feel like we just want to sit there and not really be forceful or not take what is ours and run with it.
yeah. I
Yeah,
agree. I think you raised a good point about complacency, and I think we're in an era where a lot of people think quick money is good money, right? And
yeah,
so sometimes when it comes to quick money, it's not always the right way. And when
mm-hmm.
I think about like right now black women are like we're like the number one entrepreneurs right now, right? We're leaving
Yeah,
corporate
yeah,
spaces and we're coming up with innovative ideas, but you have
yeah,
to protect your vision. That's what I always say. Protect your vision. The other thing
mm-hmm.
too is like I think about like even when I like consult with people about my business or
Mm-hmm.
what have you,
Mm-hmm.
we're signing some type of, I don't know if it's an NDA or confidentiality, especially confidentiality statement,
Yeah, yeah,
something, because
yeah,
these
yeah,
people you could just, hey, consult with somebody and you may not necessarily go with their services, but they can easily take your idea and run
mm-hmm.
with it. So I will
Mm-hmm.
encourage you, all listeners that are out there, if you do talk to someone, especially like just consult about your business or just need help, have them sign a confidentiality statement. If you don't have one, ask cheap chat GPT to do it for you. Like you can get
Yeah,
that, have them sign it, protect yourself at all means, because it's free game. If you go to
yeah,
court and you don't have any protections, it's fair
yeah.
game.
And you
So
talk about our community is not informed, right? Sometimes like you just talk about ChatGPT, AI, and then there's Google. There's so many resources, right? There's so many
yeah,
resources out there. We keep saying, "Oh, our community is not informed." Whose fault is it that our community is not informed? Because no one is gonna come and spoon feed us with this information, right? No one is
yeah,
gonna come and spoon feed us or force us to know this information. We have
yeah,
to, like I always say, I have said it many times, right? Since Soccer Podcast came into being, one thing we want to promote is like bring information to our community, like a discussion like this, right?
mhm,
Folks need to know those things. But whose
yeah,
responsibility it is, right, to take it and run with it, right? Is that because
yeah,
I think sometimes we are so distracted. Yeah, we are
mhm,
not focused on the right things, right? We are focused on
yeah,
different things that is not benefiting our community. So we get so
yeah,
caught up into it. We get caught up into gossip, little things, as you said, right? Folks want to make quick bucks and things like that, right? We are not focused on the right things, right? To try to
yeah,
ready, say, man, that we have this idea, we have this product. Let us
mhm,
be the African owned, let us be the African product, or let us be the African American, or let us be a black product, right? There's a way in
yeah,
like everyone can what appreciate the black
what you got,
culture for it, right? But it's not
yeah,
happening. No one, I mean, you are not going to, you don't expect the Caucasian to come and spoon feed all that information. As I said, it's a competitive war. Everyone's trying to get what they can
yeah.
get, you
Yeah,
know?
you raised such a good point, and I really think it really boils down to like you asked the question, who's in
Yeah.
charge of that? I do think it's us. We are in charge because I look at it as like, for example, you go out and get health insurance, right? And what do they
Hmm.
say? It's your responsibility to check if your provider's in network,
Yeah.
if all of that. That is your responsibility, and I can understand where people say, "Well, I don't know where to start." But at the same time, if you're starting a business or if you're coming up with an innovation, it is your responsibility to make sure that you put in safeguards or safety measures and understand your way along the process as you're
Hmm.
building, your empire. You don't want to just build an empire and not understand like the legalities or anything like that. That you'll do that blind, and before you know it, somebody will come snatch your stuff up. Like you don't want to
Yeah.
do that. So I
Yeah.
think it's important, especially if business owners or entrepreneurs, make sure you understand like all the legalities that you could potentially be up against, like within your industry, and
Mm-hmm.
then just like, federal, state, whatever it may be. But like, understand that trademark your stuff, like trademark your designs, or if you're writing books or journals, go get that copywritten. If you're creating patents, get all of that taken care of. And if you don't understand or know where to go, you can go to, I know our Secretary of State, I forgot the like main term, but our Secretary of State, they have like business, like small business owner resources. You can call them, it's free. You can
Mm-hmm.
call them, they can help you kind of walk through what you need. Score Minneapolis or
Sure.
Minnesota, I believe it's called
Sure.
Score. They are a small business kind of
Mm-hmm.
uh, resource hub. So they
Yeah.
have tons of workshops that they do, and they're pretty much free.
Yeah.
I know they have a lot of courses on like intellectual property, trademarking, copywriting. I take all of those classes because I always learn something new. So there are resources out there. You just got to
Yeah.
ask
And
or look.
the thing about it, though, even though you are, talking like you're naming resources, you're talking about resources that's specific to Minnesota, but that's not only true, right? It's all over these
All
United
over.
States, right? Whether you are in Pennsylvania, you're in New York, you're in
Mhm.
Colorado, wherever you are, right? You're Secretary of State or whatever, whoever, like, I mean, whatever agency, government agency, your local agency, right? They have these
Yeah.
resources. There are a lot of resources out there. The fact is, right, our community need to go and get it. Right?
Yes.
We need to go and get it. We can't just say, "Oh yeah, we don't have this information. We don't have this. We don't have that." I
Yeah.
think we live in a world now that excuse is getting old, right? That excuse is getting
Mhm.
old and it's leaving us behind, right? If we want folks to appreciate our culture, if we don't want them to appropriate it, we need to be self-conscious. We need to go after it, right? We need to go get
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
We need to have that go get it mentality instead of waiting for folks to come and spoon feed us and always giving the excuse. Oh, you know what? We don't know it. We don't know what it is. It's
Mhm.
difficult. You know, it's like these folks are not going to feel sorry for us, man. Right? It's like because right now,
No,
nobody's going to feel.
they're gonna take
Yeah,
it and
nobody's going
run.
to feel. Yeah,
They're gonna
nobody's
take
going to
it
feel
and
sorry for
run.
you, right? Because hey, man, we live in a world. As I said, I keep saying it's so much competitive, right? But how can
Mhm.
individuals, right, they just come to celebrate, another culture without appropriating? How can that be, right? Where they can celebrate or appreciate a culture where it feels so empowering or uplifting. That's not like others might not interpret it as being, you know what? I think that's been appropriated. How can that be? How's that possible?
That's a good question. I think context matters, and I think the
Hmm.
biggest thing is intent, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
your intentions are pure and you're really just wanting to kind of be a student and kind of learn, I
Hmm.
think that let me think.
Are
Yeah,
there
I
folks,
think
right?
I think
Hey, the
intent.
world we
I
live
think
in now,
intent is good.
would that be like, even if, right, someone might come with the intent, even with the right intent, but don't you think they might be accused of appropriating, right? If you maybe they just want to celebrate the culture, but these
Yeah,
days, I think,
that's
right,
good.
we live in a world right now that sometimes feels so sensitive, right?
Mhm.
It feels so sensitive. Where's the
Yeah,
line, right? As you said, right, as our topic says here tonight, right? What's the
yeah.
line? Where's the
I think
line?
it
Where
kind of
would
boils down.
someone try to, where's that line?
I think it kind of boils down to like, especially when it comes to like culturally, I think sometimes it's important to get like permissions, like cultural permissions, like I know
Mm.
nowadays people can go back to Ghana, they can do naming ceremonies, maybe they want to name and stuff like that. You have to
Mhm.
get permission from a chief, and then it's like a process, like you have to get permissions. I think it's important to get permissions, especially from that particular culture, just so that people are aware that you truly have genuine interest and you actually respect the actual culture. But you just can't just go in there and do it. And like I would say, like I'll give an example. I do a lot of vending.
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm,
was vending, and
mhm,
there's a white Caucasian man that
mhm.
sells African jewelry, and I
Okay.
remember a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, like he is bold. He came to a black market. He's selling African jewelry, but
What's wrong
at
with
the
that though?
same
What's wrong
time,
with I mean, what's wrong with that?
I,
He's
I
probably
was
trying to
like, you
appreciate
know
the
what?
culture.
He's
He's
smart.
probably trying to appreciate the culture, right? Maybe he traveled to Africa,
Well,
he saw it, he
or make a
likes it.
dollar.
eh, Huh?
He's trying. The question is he trying to appreciate the culture, or is he trying to make a dollar? Because I hear you, but my thing is, if he is truly appreciating the culture,
Mhm.
that would for me be I come to your table and maybe you share, maybe I lived in Kenya for so many years. I love the culture and I want to share some of the art pieces that I grew up against. To me, you're acknowledging the culture. To me,
What?
you're
Why?
showing
Okay, but
respect.
Angela, though, why does someone have to do that, right? The fact that they are selling it
Yeah.
to me, I feel that right, it is appreciating, the African culture. Maybe they have traveled to
It kind
Africa. Maybe they have, they
it
see
kind of
these different
depends.
jewelry,
There's
they see
levels
these
to it.
different things, and they liked it.
There's levels to it because first I want to know how did you source the product? Are you having
Oh,
people
okay.
slaving in the back and making this and paying them pennies? Is this like how are you getting the product? One, because I need to make sure like there's a lot of people that, for example, are in Ghana and they're selling
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
the Botenga baskets, all type of things. But
mm-hmm,
are they giving back to the culture and community? That
mm-hmm.
like there's so many questions that I have like with that. Like it's one thing to be selling, but it's another thing. Are you giving back to the community that you're actually taking from and
Uh,
making a dollar from? Like what is that? So I like there's levels to it. And like it's okay, like he's making a dollar, but at the same time, I need to understand like how you're making that money because there's a lot of people that are going back home. Like you think about like shea butter, they're destroying villages just to gotta get shea butter because it's $1 million market, and all
okay.
these Caucasian folks are going and having these old women like make it, and they're paying them pennies. So my question for him would be, I would love to understand, oh, how did you get into this business and how did you learn about this and how did you get it here? Like I need to understand that because there's levels
So
to it. Abe.
will you have the same question though if it was black person that was selling our product? Will you have that same question? Will you try to interrogate that person the same way you are assuming the Caucasian you are trying to do the Caucasian person? Will you do that to a
So
black person?
that's a good question because believe it or not, I get interrogated because a lot of people are like, oh, especially I get interrogated by African people because they're like, oh, are these from Ghana? Oh, yeah. It's like, okay, yeah. And then they try to make the connection. I'm like, oh, I'm from Ghana. They're like, really? So you get the questions, and it's like, okay, people need to get validated. So for me, when I meet other people or meet people that are first generation or what have you, and they're
Mhm,
selling
mhm,
kind of the
mhm.
same things for me, I remain curious.
Okay.
There's a way to remain curious without interrogating someone. So I remain curious. Okay, like how did you get into this work? And usually that story will be either okay, I'm from this country, or oh, I got a partner or business
Mhm,
partner back home and we do it.
mhm,
So there's differences, but yeah, I do scrutinize a little bit more when it comes to Caucasian
mhm,
folks that are selling African products. And I think from
mhm,
a historical standpoint, I mean, the continent of Africa has been robbed of many. We think
mhm,
about chocolate, we think about diamonds, we think about all of
mhm.
that. So yeah, I'm gonna question. I'm gonna
But
question.
okay, if you say the continent has been robbed, right? I said again, I come back to that whole fault issue. Whose fault is it? Is it? I don't think it's
Us.
so.
It is.
Look, we
I blame
live.
us.
I
I
said right,
blame
the
us.
entire world, right? The entire world right now, right? Even I think we live in a capitalist society. Everyone's trying to make a buck, right? No
Make a
matter
buck,
how
yeah.
other folks might define themselves or their
Mhm.
socialism or whatever it is, right? I think we live in a capitalist society all over the world, right? Everyone's trying to
Yeah.
make a living. Everyone try to make a buck. And so if
Mhm.
someone is selling something, if I go to Africa and I see something like for a few bucks and I can take it to China, take it to Europe or bring it to America and make profit, why not? It's all about
Yeah.
maximizing, having it maximizing my profit, right? It is up to whoever that is selling it to me, right? To say, hey, maybe to do their research and say, hey
Mhm.
man, maybe like I need to know what is this, what's the price of this on the global market. I mean, like gold,
Yeah.
right? When you bring gold on the global market, it is very, very expensive. In most
Mm.
African countries, you can buy that stuff for very cheap, right? It is
Yeah.
not, it is not, whoever is buying it, it's not their fault to go and tell you, say, hey, I should try to pay a fair price. That's not how
Mhm.
capitalism works.
Yeah, there's so many levels to it, and I think I still will go back to blaming us. I feel
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
like you said, everybody's trying to make a dollar. Everybody's trying to make quick money. And when I think about like, especially on the West Coast,
Hmm.
you think about land, right? There's so many people that are coming back from the United States and getting land.
Hmm.
There's people going and looking for gold and whatnot.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
thing for me is I really wish the natives really knew the value of what they actually have, like what they're
Hmm.
actually sitting on. Because
Hmm.
if they knew that, they would actually really get a premium price for, or they would
Yeah.
get premium value for what it is. But sometimes they're just like, for example, like land, they're just selling land like it's like candy, right? But then like, we got the folks that want to go back to Africa and
Hmm.
make way. But the thing is, like, sometimes some of those folks are like really not legit. They found a way to connect with, they pay the chief small amounts
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
money, and then
Yeah.
you find out later that you built this whole house and it's really not your land. And
Okay.
so I think the big problem right now is people are looking for quick money versus like understanding the value. And I think even
Yeah.
just it goes to like today's world,
Yeah.
just products here. We fail to protect ourselves because we want quick
Hmm.
money, and before you
Yeah.
know it, people don't pay attention to things until it actually impacts them. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like in all aspects, until you're in trouble, that's when people pay attention.
Yeah. Well, folks, tonight we are discussing cultural appropriation versus appreciation. Where's the line, right? There is something that, Black folks, we feel that our culture, we feel that things that we create or ideas that we come with is always appropriated from us versus we being appreciated or us getting the credit. But hey, man, whose fault is it? Is it our fault or is it those that are appropriated their fault? So tonight you can join the conversation, by calling our number 817-600-1525. You can put a comment in the chat. I have my guest Andrea with me providing some good information. We're having some great discussion. So, folks, join the conversation. And that's, as I said, here at Soccer Podcast, we bring topics that are very challenging, right? But that are time sensitive and time appropriate, right? Especially right now, right? There's a lot of whatever you do these days, someone might either call you woke or call you something else, right? It's like, so, but where's the line and things like that. So as I say, you can join the conversation by putting a comment in the chat, call them with number 817-600-1525. But so Miss B is saying here, capitalism is only America. I disagree with that, right? Capitalism is not only America, right? Consumerism is all over the world. I mean, even in China, everyone trying to buy even whether the latest iPhone or the latest Huawei or whatever product they have there, right? Consumerism is all over the world, and that's a capitalist. I think that's a capitalism mentality wherein like everyone trying to buy the latest gadget, everyone trying to make a living, everyone trying to make a buck. So I personally believe, right, capitalism is all over the world, right? If you sleep on it, right, someone's going to take a product or your idea and run with it. But what's your thought, Andrea? Do you agree with Miss B or do you agree with my viewpoint? But I feel like, man, wherever you travel, right, someone is trying to get something from you, and that's a capitalist mindset.
Mindset, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hard one. I mean, I feel like the US, I feel like US is like, it's like magnified, like times
Mhm.
times three, times three.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
let's see,
Yeah.
gold
No,
is
no, you go
not,
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
but it's, when I've been to Europe, I've been to Africa. Africa, everybody trying to make a dollar and just survive. Europe is a little different.
Mhm.
Um, you might run into folks maybe trying to take your ideas, but it's not as intentional and prevalent as United States. United States, you meet somebody one day and like, hey, I'm thinking about something, da 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 da, sharing my ideas. Next thing you know, before you know it, somebody took it and ran with it, and
Mhm.
that's it. Somebody wants that money, so I feel like United States definitely is a lot more prevalent and a lot more
Okay.
intentional, and um
Okay.
than the rest of the world, but it does happen in the rest of the world, like in certain pockets, in certain places.
Yeah. When you hear about this whole cultural appropriation versus appreciation, right? It says like some folks will say it's so normalized in pop culture or it's so normalized on social media. Why do you think that is, right? Why do you think pop culture? Because I think, right, especially when it comes to the black culture, right? I think African Americans, we black people, we are so talented. We are so,
Mhm.
so much talented. Well, I think some of the challenges we face, sometimes it is our own creation. But why do you think like folks feel that it's so normalized in pop culture and social media, this whole cultural appropriation thing?
I blame like social media because it helps perpetuate that, like
Mm.
I think about products, right? There's so many
Yeah.
products that are out on the market, but if you peel back the layers, a lot of, like, look at where they derive from. Where are these things coming from? And it's funny
Mm.
because I think about, like, for example, like, I know there's been like memes and stories around like a day without immigrants or a day without
Yeah,
black people, and you
yeah,
think about
yeah.
just if you think about if like a day without black people or inventions, like we created so many things that I don't think people get credit for. Maybe the anything that's maybe above like from 1990s and above, maybe kind of. But like when you think about like the bicycle, when you think about the clock, all these things, like these are things that the world would probably never be where it is now if they didn't have it. But
Hmm.
I do know for a fact a lot of the folks are they're inventors. Um, the inventors didn't get credit for. And just to kind of go back to your question, as far as just how things are kind of normalized. I just think that social media or just media in general, like they help perpetuate all of that. Like, yeah.
If we talk, yeah. So now that you talk about all of these inventions, right? Maybe like
Mhm.
that black folks, right, invented, like, I mean, brought the ideas, right, and
Mhm.
it's now popular, or the world will not be where we are today, right, with all these inventions, right, and stuff like that. Even if they were not given credit back then, are we even giving? Are we, even in our own culture, are we
Mhm.
highlighting these folks? Are we highlighting these people?
Yeah.
Are we kind of even appreciating it in our own culture, in our own settings? Because sometimes that's where I think these things should start from, right? Are
Mhm.
we appreciating one another? Are we celebrating
Yeah.
one another? Then we
Yeah.
can what? Take that and run with it to the larger culture. But okay, I
Yeah.
agree, right? I agree with your point. Maybe some of these inventions, as I said, no one is going to, right? No one
Yeah.
is going to credit us for something that they feel like, like we are not even stepping up to take credit for,
Yeah.
or
And
we
that's
are
a good.
not, supporting one another. Right? I think
Yeah.
that's the thing is that we need to. I have always said, I think what separates the other folks from us, right? They work together. For us,
That's true.
we work against each other. So if we want to get away from this idea of cultural appropriation, where we feel we are not getting credit for
Yeah.
things, or we're not being appreciated for things, it
Yeah.
has to start with us, giving
Yeah.
credit to one another,
Yeah.
supporting one another, celebrating one another.
Yeah, that's you raised some really good points. I feel like we're getting there, especially with the world where we're at now. People are
Hmm.
starting to like wake up and pay attention. But I wanted to kind of go back to like the acknowledgement. I
Hmm.
think that I will say during Black History Month, they do a lot of people do a good job with like highlighting, inventions and
Why
whatnot.
do we have to wait for Black History Month? Not to cut you
Exactly.
off
I
there.
will say,
Why do we
I
have,
will
first of all,
say,
right? First of all, right? Just for me, I have problem with these kind of a Black History Month,
I got
this
you.
month, that month. I look, I'm a black 365 days around the year, every
Yes.
day, all day. I don't have to wait
Yeah,
for a specific month to maybe go to a
I
black business
understand.
to try to promote that business. Why should we have to wait for these days or for these months?
I wholeheartedly
But because
agree.
these are artificial months, or these are
I
artificial things.
feel
I'm
I
telling you,
wholeheartedly
man.
agree. I think that I will even say this past Black History Month, I learned a lot more than I typically usually do. But I think it is our responsibility as a Black culture to be informed and like read up on these things. I know like when I was growing up, I had an aunt that always would every Christmas she would give us books on inventors, Black inventors. So I still
Hmm.
have these books to this day, but so I was
Hmm.
aware of what it looked like back in the day. But I think it's our responsibility as a culture to read books, stay abreast upon our culture and what we created and what we invented, so that we can appreciate things more. But
Hmm.
at the same time, we live in a society where sometimes the monotony takes over and we just wake up, eat, sleep, go to work, do our thing and go, and we don't really take the time to really invest and appreciate our culture. Sometimes people will do that when they go back home. Maybe they go back home and they have a life-changing experience, and then they come back and they want to learn more and they're into it. But by the time usually you see that's like kind of like an older generation, right? And so I feel like it's it's interesting. You raised a good point, because I will say like my customers, I have an African inspired gifts and accessory shop, and
Hmm.
my main customers are anyone that's probably I want to say like 45 and up, especially like the
Hmm.
60-year olds. They,
Hmm.
oh, I love Ghana, I've been to Ghana, and they appreciate things more. But it's like, how do we get like the youth and the younger folks to like really appreciate that and understand that? And I think it's going to take like a little bit of education. But right now we're fighting against just even keeping our history and our real history in school. So I feel like it's an uphill battle. But I think that to your point, um, right now we're in a time where working together and unity is probably more powerful than anything. And if all these things are getting dismantled, like
Yeah.
why can't we create our own grocery stores? Why can't we create our own co-ops? Why can't we create our own anything? But I think a lot of us are just I feel like a lot of folks are, I don't want to say scared. I feel like we just some folks don't have the initiative, but there's money out there, there's resources out there, but sometimes taking that first step, like we're missing out on money. But I think people are slowly paying attention, but you got to get the right business partners and the right folks to
As
kind of
I,
move things
I've
forward.
I have always said, I think, we have this blame game mentality. We're always trying to blame the system. We're always trying to blame others, right? It's like we black folks, as I said, we try to play so many cards, and the popular card that we always play is trying to blame others, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there's nothing wrong with trying to blame others, but at what point do we start taking the initiative? At what
You got to be
point do we start looking
accountable.
at ourselves? Yeah, what I mean, do we start being accountable to ourselves? At what point do we start looking at ourselves in the mirror and say, man, we have it's like no one is going to come and rescue us, right? We have to rescue ourselves, right? But
Mhm.
that gets onto some comments here. Miss B bringing up, right? She said, like, okay, one of the things that people who
Yeah,
create a
it's
thing don't
true.
always reap the greatest award. But I mean, whose fault it is? If you create something, right? If you create something, man, let there be passion, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to, you don't just create something and relax and say, hey, maybe it's
Yeah.
going to, work itself out. Maybe let's forget about back in the days, right? Maybe back in the days, the resources were not there.
Yeah.
We never had the power. But now, if we still trying to say like we create things and we don't get the credit, I think
Yeah.
we live in a world like there's so much information out there. There's so much
Yeah.
ways, so many ways. As you said, there's so many ways. There's so many
Yeah.
resources, but we're not taking
Yeah.
advantage of it.
I would just say like there's kind of levels to that too. So when I think about back home, right, we got a lot of people that
Mm-hmm,
are working in the market, a lot of young folks in the market,
mm-hmm,
making things, trying to sell it. They're hoping they're banking on tourism to come and get their profits.
mm-hmm,
But again, they're so caught up on quick money because they got to eat, they got to survive, they got to make sure their family is good, right? So in a way, that's why I feel like for the folks that are, here and going back home or doing business
mm-hmm,
back home, I feel like it should be like a each one teach one situation, right? Like for me, my business partners who I'm working with, I'm not I'm not a uh I forgot what the term is, but basically I don't want them always for myself, right? My thing
mm-hmm,
is as we're doing business, I'm gonna also show you how you can market yourself so you can get other business. So like my folks that I work with, I help them optimize their LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, but their Instagram pages because a lot of them use Instagram to try to like get business and stuff like that. But they're not aware of like SEO. They're not aware of how to like follow the algorithms. They don't understand that. So I help them kind of understand and give them a baseline understanding of like, okay, you need to make sure this is in your bio. You need to make sure people can understand how shipment works. You need to understand you actually have a process. You get people will post, oh, one size fits all. No,
yeah,
one size does not fit all. Like you got to
yeah,
understand. So my goal is to make sure that I pour back into my partners so they understand
mm-hmm,
and they can actually interact with others so they can
mm-hmm,
actually make profit and continue their business.
mm-hmm,
Um, I think that when it comes to United States here, again, quick money, a lot of people want to make quick money and there's gatekeepers, a lot of gatekeepers out here. And I know that it's like there's a fine line, right? And like for me,
yeah,
my biggest thing is I love helping people, but sometimes they have to draw a line, right? Because
mm-hmm,
like
yeah,
you don't want someone to be like completely, you don't want to show someone too much and then they take it and then like take your whole business idea. But like my goal is
yeah,
to show you how to succeed and like scale your business. That's like I like doing that, but like I'm not
yeah,
here to like have you take from my
mm-hmm,
table. So I
mm-hmm,
think a lot of that is kind of prevalent in the United States. A lot of people will take from you, and not even feel bad about it. And you think about like stories on like, especially like the beauty industry, everybody's doing beauty, right? But you got to figure out like how you can differentiate yourself from that. And you hear stories of like someone created a concept and then they took it and ran with it, but then they're trying to sue somebody. But did you
Sure.
trademark your stuff? Did you
Yeah.
copyright your stuff? And it's like,
Yeah.
you can't sit in front of a judge if you didn't put those protections in place,
Yeah.
right? And so I think the biggest, to Miss B's point, the biggest people that are hit are, I will say, the people back home, because they don't get nothing. Like you think about shea
Yeah.
butter, that's such a big industry right now. There's so many
Yeah.
Caucasian people going back home and like
Yeah.
having they just have all these like set programs set up, but are
Hmm.
they really getting paid, you know? So I always ask questions, but this is the thing, I find out a lot about all these.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there are a lot of Caucasian businesses or people doing business in especially on the west side, where
Hmm.
resources are available, like shea butter. Black soap is a whole other thing. Sponges is a
Hmm.
big thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing that, but they're trying to get a piece of the pie too. And so I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that we also need to safeguard ourselves and say, no, like you can't come get this, do something
Yeah.
else. But
Yeah.
people just are
Yeah.
trying to make a dollar.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought a whole aspect about another angle about gatekeepers, right?
Mhm.
I think our biggest disadvantage as Black folks, we are not the gatekeepers. Honestly, it's
You
like,
think so? To a
hey,
certain
if you
degree.
if you're
To a
trying to
certain
enter
degree.
that door and someone who's
Yeah.
there, let's assume like it's like I
Yeah.
see that in corporate America a lot, right? As I'm in finance, right? Like in corporate finance, you had to find black people in corporate
Yeah.
finance because the gatekeepers there are like the CFOs, 99.9% are white. If you're trying to get up there, who's going to make you to get? And sometimes even when you
Yeah.
see a black person in finance, right? That black person trying to avoid another black person coming there, right? They try to why?
Yeah.
It's like shut that gate. I think it's one of our biggest problem, right? As
Yeah.
I've always said, right? How can we, right, try as much as
Mhm.
possible, as start as and it has to be what? Start with us in our
Yeah.
own communities, right? Trying to help out one another, trying to uplift one another. Because
Yeah.
to me, that's the biggest disadvantage we face, right? If you're trying to establish a small business, access
Mhm.
to capital. When you go to the bank, who are you gonna see?
Yeah.
Who's the
Yeah.
gatekeeper at the bank, right?
It's
You know,
true. It's
if
true.
you try
It's
to if you
true.
try to get a home loan, right? It's like
Yeah.
who's the gatekeeper? So we need to watch. We need to be intentional about this
Yeah.
thing. And
But I think
so,
it's oh, go ahead.
no, 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 no. Go
I was
ahead, go
gonna
ahead.
say it's important, but to your point though, I think that's why it's also important to position ourselves into these roles so that we can help our own people. And I feel like, I mean, you raised some really good points, because especially in when I was in corporate, did a lot of work in like risk management. I was the
Mhm.
only in a legal department, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, now you gotta, and for me, it's I feel like you gave some good examples, but that I feel also like a lot of it is more so where white supremacy shows up, right? Because we're so conditioned to be like, okay, I need this job because I need insurance. I need this job because I need stability. But people are so afraid of letting those, I would say, benefits go, where you can actually just create your own, but you can get insurance and be an entrepreneur. But
Right.
I think it's just a lack of awareness. And I think those safety measures, I think we're so accustomed to having the 401k, the benefits, all of these things, that we're afraid to like break away and do our own thing, because like we're so used to that consistent income, right? And taking risks, us, we don't want to take risks. We're not doing
But
that unless we know what's there. So
but that's a funny thing though, where you say we are so afraid to take risks. But black people are so pain tolerant, right? We have been through so much pain. When it comes
yeah,
to pain, man, like no one,
we're
no
not
one
trying
goes
to do
through
that.
pain, no one goes through pain like a black person. Honestly.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? And stuff like that. But yet, why are we so afraid to take risks, right? Risk is about, I mean, there might be either pain or gain, right? And that where there's
yeah,
no pain, there's no gain. But why are
yeah,
we afraid? Well, when it comes to pain, we have bear the most pain in this. To me, it's like there's no doubt about it, right? There's no questioning that. No matter
yeah.
what side you find yourself on, right? There's no questioning that black people are so pain tolerant because we've been through
Oppressed.
so
Yeah,
much. So why are we
yeah,
afraid? I would say, hey, man, it's like I always say, like take as much risk as you can. Because
yeah,
guess what? The worst that could happen, you fall. we are good at getting up, right? If we fall,
Yeah,
right, it's like we find our way back up. But why are we afraid?
yeah.
And things like that. I think our mentality need to change. If we want
Mhm.
to have a leg up there, our mentality need to change. If we want to have the appreciation that we deserve, our mentality need to change.
Yeah, you raised so many good points. The biggest thing for me, I am a strong believer of failing forward. I love to fail. I know it sounds weird. Failing
Yeah,
forward is the best thing for me. You know, when my business, I started off as a t-shirt business and then we had an event, we sold things and we sold out. And my mom was like, you need to figure out how to scale this. And I was like, I don't know how to do it, but I figured it out. I had to
yeah,
go and do my research I'm a strong believer in don't worry about the money, but when you become good at something and you're very passionate about something, the money
yeah,
will follow because you'll be so good at it, it will attract money or
yeah,
money will
yeah,
come. And I think
yeah.
to your point, just kind of going back to just why we're so afraid, I think just the calculated risk, we're just so comfortable. We live in a society where our race in general has been oppressed for so many years, right? And so we've always had to fight for whatever it is. But at the same time, I feel like we're tired. We it's so easy to just say,
Higher,
okay, I got my benefit. Yeah,
higher,
we're tired. I think we're tired.
higher,
You know me. We
higher.
I could be talking about business at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm up doing my
Yeah.
thing, but I know the average person's not doing that, right? But I feel like if you want it that bad, if you want it that bad, you'll take that risk. But at the same time, I think we're conditioned in corporate America. We're conditioned to want the 401ks. We're conditioned to want the benefits and all of that. But people don't really know those same benefits are out there. You can go to the marketplace and get your own benefits. There's benefit plans for people that are not with like a
Mm-hmm,
employer, right? uh
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't know that you can create your own what's it oh my god, Roth plan,
Any,
all the IRAs, all that.
anything
There's
you
so
can
many
create,
different
yeah,
ways.
you can create anything, and there's a market for it,
Anything.
right? I mean that, yeah, I mean, there's a
So you have to
market
be
for it. You can
informed.
create anything. There's a market for it.
You have to be
I mean,
informed.
I'm glad you brought up about the comfort thing. I think it is not only in America the way we feel so comfortable. You sometimes when you travel to Africa,
Mhm.
where there's so much poverty, you see folks
Mhm.
just comfortable. It's
Yeah.
comfortable. You talk about land earlier, right? There's so much land. So much
Yeah.
to do. There's so much resources around it. You see folks
Yeah.
just so complacent and comfortable.
Yeah.
Comfortable. They can hardly put food on the table, but then they are comfortable. So it's not
Yeah.
only here. It is not only here that you find that. You
Yeah.
go to the continent, you go to the homeland, you go to the motherland. That's everywhere. You see, folks,
Yeah.
why are you so comfortable? Why are you not hungry enough to go and get
Yeah.
it? Why are you so
I
comfortable? Where's the hunger? Where's the drive?
yeah. I think I struggle with that too, especially being in the entrepreneurial world, having multiple businesses. Sometimes people don't get the vision because they're like, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired? But it's like, my goal is generational wealth, right? But at the same time, I have to always be mindful how I respond because I have to recognize that these folks they can't even see past what
Hmm.
like where they're at right now, right? I'm vibrating at a different level and I'm not looking down on anybody, but at the same time, I have my own passions. I have
Yeah.
my own goals. I want
Hmm.
generational wealth. And I'm thinking like long term, right? I might not see fully all the benefits today, but like I want my lineage to have that in the
Hmm.
future. And I think when it comes to like even not even necessarily back home or even just here, when you think about I'll just give an analogy. If you know someone that has never left their city or never left their state or never left
Yeah.
the country, they're
Yeah.
going to have limited perspective on what they actually can do.
Yeah.
Right. And I get
Yeah.
a lot of the time people are like, oh, you're back in school again. Oh my gosh, you're always in school. But I have a vision, right? But
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
same time, some of these people that I know that say these things, maybe they've only have like a high school education, but because they
Sure.
haven't been exposed to the
Mhm.
possibilities or how far they can actually go, they're
Sure.
gonna remain stagnant and they're
Yeah.
gonna stay there. And so I think about just to your point, it's the same when it comes to businesses in our community.
Yeah.
It's the same when it comes to wealth. If you've never seen that, or you've never been exposed to that, or even
Hmm.
had a hunger for that,
Yeah.
you're gonna be comfortable in where you're at. And that's where you see
Hmm.
sometimes you see generations where, mom, dad, they all kind of done the same work over and over and
Hmm.
over again. And I remember like way back in the day, like when I was living in Michigan at a point in time and I was working at a company, and there are people that they were like, they call them lifers. Like they've been
Yeah.
there like 30 years. And I'm like, dang, like you don't aspire to be more. And I remember I was talking to a woman, I was just asking questions and I was like, oh, what do you want to kind of do? Do you want to transition somewhere? Oh no, I want to retire here. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, like you've been here since high school, college, and you don't want to do more. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I never understood it. But at the same time, I think like, I'm grateful for, having immigrant parents because, obviously, especially when it comes to immigrants that come here, their mind is like, I gotta survive. I gotta survive. And so I think, you get that in certain people, but then sometimes you get people that are comfortable. They got here,
Mhm.
they got a roof over their head, they got a job, they can get food,
Mhm.
and it's good
Yeah.
enough for me. But I think it just boils down to seeing more than where you're at now. And not everybody can see that.
Yeah, I think there's two things that are really, really common preventing our community, right? Comfort and survival, right? We are always in survival mode. And sometimes like I know, right, as I said, we have been through a lot, as black folks we've been through a lot, right? It's like it's not any fault of our own. But we need to get out of that survival mindset, right? Where
Yeah.
can we get out of just being right? I just need to survive. I just need to provide for my family. Where you like, you know what? I need to work hard as best as I can, right? As hard as I can,
Yeah.
smart as I can, right? To try to create something and leave something for my family. But I
Mhm.
think we need to get, I said, we need to have that mindset shift, survival and comfort, because man,
Yeah.
it is holding us back, right?
It's
It is
true.
actually holding us back because you see, most black folks just want to survive, right? Sometimes you hear like, South Side Chicago, right? You say, okay, there's so many shooting going on there. Why should I be in that kind of environment when there's 50 states? Yeah, honestly, right? There's 50 states. If I'm
Yeah.
somewhere where there's always like, hey, I'm gonna pack up and probably move to Wisconsin. If
Yeah.
if Wisconsin is not working for me, move to
You know,
Minnesota. Minnesota is not working up for me. Working for me, I'm going to Iowa. Iowa is not working.
keep
I'm
it
going to
moving.
exactly,
I think
exactly.
I think the thing to your point, one analogy that I like to use is especially like when I'm in meetings, I get called for a lot of things. People are like, "Oh, hey, we should do this. It's a good idea, good idea." And I always ask like the whys and hows and how we're going to get there and what's the
Mhm,
outcome. The one
mhm,
thing is a lot of people have an enthusiasm, right? But it's
mhm.
the endurance that's not going to help you get to where you need to be, right?
Man,
Everybody's excited about the business. Oh, I got a new idea. I'm about to make some dough, but when it starts to like do the heavy lifting and doing your accounting and doing your billing, saving your receipts and all of that, it's like, oh, this is too much. And I just think that it's a high risk and but a high reward if you follow through to it with it and you educate yourself and continue to learn. Like I've been doing this
yeah,
stuff for a while, but every day I
yeah,
learn something and I'm always like
yeah,
taking classes. Remember, I show you guys all the time. I'm taking classes all the time trying to just educate myself because
yeah,
things are
yeah,
always changing and
yeah,
you gotta keep up or you just
yeah,
gonna kind of get left behind. And
yeah,
so I would just say for the folks that are out here trying to hustle and create their own
mhm,
businesses. If you
yeah,
have your 9 to 5, it's okay. Keep your 9 to 5, but dedicate some time to work on your business little by little until you can actually leave your 9 to 5, right? But
mhm,
keep your day job and use the some put some time into your business because if you don't, you're gonna work for the man for the rest of your life. You're gonna help build somebody else's dreams. So
exactly.
work on your dreams as you can, little by little, until you can actually sustain that income and work on that full time, and then you can transition from that. But if you don't, and you're just like have the dream in your head, it's gonna stay
Yeah,
there. It's gonna just be
yeah,
simply a dream unless you
yeah,
execute it little by
yeah.
little.
Yeah, and even if it's executed somewhere else, right? In corporate America, it might get appropriated, right? And you not, and you won't
Hmm.
you won't get appreciated for it. But anyway, that's the thing, right? And I think you bringing up some good terms here tonight. Endure. I mean, you talk about endurance, right? As endurance, I think that's a very very key word. That's one of the things we lack also in our community. But here's the thing about, and I think it kind of a feelings right here. What Miss B is talking about, right? So we are
Yes,
responsible for everything, fashion, art, food, entertainment, whatever, right? But not having generational wealth impacts our ability to take things to market and scale is harder for us. I
that's
think
so good.
the reason that is where you talk about endurance. Most of us do
Mhm.
not endure. Once we start, that's something that's what confuses me. We are so pain tolerant. Black people can take pain.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Honestly.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's a Caucasian. I mean, God bless them, right? They are innovative, they everything and things like that. But
Yeah.
they cannot
But
stand
things get
pain
hard.
compared to a black person. No one can take pain compared to a black person.
Yeah.
Why
I
don't
wanted
we
to.
endure? Why don't
I
we
want to.
endure when it comes to building wealth, when it comes to building
Yeah.
generational wealth, when it comes to sticking to ideas, to things that we start?
Yeah.
We
I
we
just
just give up.
I just want to go back to Miss B's point. She hit it spot on the head because you think about a lot of these kids, they're born into this, right? And
Mhm,
mom, dad maybe already had money aside, or maybe they were born into a wealthy family and the family
mhm,
business, they take on the family business and they're already, they don't even have to go to college. They can take
mhm.
on the family business and they're born into wealth. They can take on like the family farm, born into wealth. And we have to start from scratch. And I think that can sometimes be a deterrent when it comes to our community, as far as like having to figure out and kind of bootstrap things. Sometimes we just want the quick money, right? And so that can impact our ability to be able to scale, like Miss B said. And unfortunately, you know, it takes sometimes for you to have to kind of bootstrap your own, capital, and then maybe meet some investors and what have you, but you also have to be mindful of that too. But unfortunately, we're just, there's only a few that are born into generational wealth. Not a
But
lot of them.
again, though, again, I'll come back to my same question. Well, whose fault is it, right? That we keep, right? I mean, from time immemorial, right? It's like from the beginning, right? We keep
Mm,
black people. We are born in deficit. That's how I like to call it, right? We are born in
mm,
deficit and not generational wealth. Whose fault is it?
mm,
When are we going to change that? When are we going to stop being just like like have something that we can pass
mm,
on to the next generation? When's that going to
mm.
change? Are we always going to, is it always going to be this deficit thing that we have to deal with from generation to generation? When's that going to change? Right? When's that going to
Yeah.
change?
I think it's a big thing. A big thing to think about is when we know better, you'll do better, and that's why I think it's important to like really educate ourselves. You sometimes I don't know how much you're on social media, but you get on TikTok and you see a lot of these folks that are like talking about cryptocurrency and talking about the stock market and all these things. And
Hmm, hmm,
I didn't know anything about the stock market. I know my dad used to he does a lot in the stock market. He did
hmm.
a lot when we were younger. And he always used to say, like, make sure you pay attention, pay attention. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. But then one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a book. I'm going to buy a book. I
Yeah.
got a book and it talked about how to invest and how to get stocks. And I started off with penny stocks. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, this is working. Now I'm understanding that. I slowly started reading more. So I had to take the initiative to educate myself in increments. But as I knew more, then I would do better. And so I
Yeah.
think we have to take the initiative to like educate ourselves around generational wealth, whether it's investing, whether it's the big thing right now, I think that people need to pay attention to is like education, right? Like there's so much
Hmm.
being dismantled right now. Who knows if scholarships are going to be available? How are people going to be paying for education, 20,
Yeah.
30 years down the line?
Yeah.
So, right now, look into 529s, look into
Yeah.
other means of being able to support your children, because
Sure.
who knows how much college is going to cost 10, 20 years from now. But
Hmm.
at the same time, are you going to really have your child like literally taking out loans, or like
Yeah.
come out of college and not be able to just, you know, you know, um, reap their benefits of,
Sure.
whatever their industry that they're going in. So I think
Yeah.
those are the biggest thing. But I think financial like safeguards are a big
Hmm.
uh component, or a big tool that I think people should be paying attention to right now, especially
Okay.
planning for the future, because
Yeah.
who knows, things can change. They're
Yeah.
talking about the dollar may be not valuable. So like if the
Yeah.
dollar's not valuable, what will be the new currency? Like
Yeah.
do you have gold? Like I know people that have been collecting gold. I know people that collect nickels,
Sure.
like true nickel, all of that. So like what things
Sure.
are valuable that you could potentially use for currency in the future if
Yeah.
the dollar goes away? But I
Yeah.
think people are just people are going to be, I feel like a lot of people are reactive versus being
Yeah.
proactive. And
Yeah.
I think, I don't want to say we're conditioned, but we're used to being reactive when something happens.
Mm.
Unfortunately, that goes to the rest of society. We don't really pay attention until something happens or unless it impacts us.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons we have this platform, right? To bring education to our community. We're going to be
Mhm.
having a segment here regarding the education department that's been dismantled. Some of the things that's been dismantled. Obviously, we
Mhm.
we have had a DI discussion. As I said, right? DI was never for black people. I said that it was never for black people. Whoever it was for, I don't want to get into that. That's a whole nother conversation. But DI was never for black people. But now, right, we are the one taking what? we're the one taking that we are the one taking on
Yeah.
that pain because
Yeah.
folks are blaming us that DI was for us. I say it was not for
Mhm.
black people. Black people didn't benefit from DI. But some of the things you talk about, right, is like I think that's the reason why Cycle podcast, right? It was like we're intentional about bringing about this platform to
Yeah.
bring information to our community because I think we live our community as a whole, especially
Yeah.
the African diaspora. We live in an information desert, right? Things are not coming to us, right?
Mhm.
We are not going to get information to bring it to our community. It's just talk. A lot of people know about these things. I mean, it's like I didn't even know, like, man, is that political representation is huge in this country because if you got your state representative and stuff like that, right, they can bring resources back to you.
Mhm.
Most it's like I've just started learning. I've just started knowing about this. I mean, such a thing, right? I'm like, that man. No wonder the Caucasian. No wonder it's like I mean, it's like they have all these resources coming to them because they have representation. We don't. We shy away from that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shy away from it. Right? It's like so we need to start being intentional about these things to say, hey man, we need to go and get it. We need to go out there and get it. Other than that, whatever ideas, whatever product, everything is gonna get appropriated and no one's gonna help us. No one's gonna come and rescue us, right? There's no
Yeah.
rescue mission out there waiting just to come and rescue the black race. Black people
No.
we need to what? Take what's ours, right? We need to go and
Yeah.
get it, right? We need to
Yeah.
be intentional about it, right? It's like that's the only way we're going to get the appreciation. Other than that, we're going to keep playing the black game. When someone is successful, right? If I could just post some of Miss B comments, say, hey, maybe this person is in jail because of Ciroc. I don't know, right? Whatever that is, right? That's a whole nother topic. Maybe you. Maybe we can discuss the whole dating thing
That is a
on the
whole.
yeah,
Hey, Miss
maybe
B, you're
no, no,
speaking
on the
facts.
social
You're
segment.
speaking facts.
Yeah, definitely,
You're
right? We
speaking
can take that.
facts.
We
Hey,
can
can
take that
we
to the
gotta
social
make this a
segment.
topic, and please, I need to be in there. Miss B, you gotta be
No,
on
well,
that
yeah,
too, because we
definitely,
talk
right?
about that.
And then
I got
and
I got
then
some stuff
people
to
and then
say.
she said people say Michael Jackson was killed because he was trying to take over the music industry. Whatever that is,
Yeah,
right?
Whitney
Hey,
Houston too. Mm,
hey,
another
hey,
topic.
whatever that is, right? As I said, that's a whole nother
Biggie
topic.
too.
But
I'm ready. Let's
me,
go, Miss
yeah,
B.
but maybe because, right? Maybe because we are not standing up for our folks, right? No one is
Yeah,
standing up for them, whatever it is. So other people will take it and say, "Hey, man, if you try to do this, whatever." But I think we need to be intentional about stuff. We need to not only like, as I said, surviving and being comfortable. We need to
yeah,
be intentional about helping one another, uplifting one another, empowering one another, and this whole culture appropriation thing, right? I think in order for our culture, for our ideas, for our products not to be appropriated without us getting the necessary appreciation, we need to start doing it for ourselves, right?
yeah,
Appreciating what we have,
yeah,
celebrating what we have, right? We don't do that enough in the diaspora, right? A lot of African immigrant, I think Mel quoted stats here the last time, right? 27% of the American population are African or African born, and things like that. That's a huge number.
it
That's a
is.
huge number. We should be having impact in this. I mean, in this country. But because, as I said, most of us are so distracted, man. Okay? Some of us are living in two worlds. We have discussed that here, right? Some of us live in Ghana and America. Some of us live in Liberia and America. Some of us live in Nigeria and America. Some of us live in Kenya and America. And at the end of the day, where is your priority, right? Where's your focus?
Yeah, I
And that's
really
that's
think.
what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
I was
ahead. Go
gonna
ahead.
say, I really think that if we really work together, it would be so, so, so powerful, like
Hmm.
in so many different ways. And like to your point about appreciating things, who would have thought shea butter would be like a gold mine, right? But like they've been using shea butter forever, and it's like now it's like people are making bank off of that. And it's like in my mind sometimes like okay, I'm like I think about like, don't you guys realize like what you have? Like this is like, and at the same time, I can't blame them too much, but at the same time, like it's science too. Like it's good for the skin. But if you've been using this for so many years and it's made your skin so smooth and so pure, this
Hmm.
should be held like to like this should be like sacred almost. But then you
Yeah.
have these corporations that are going over and digging and cutting down trees and taking all that,
Mhm.
and then you have like black soap is a big thing too. You got all these Caucasian folks coming in, they learned about it. They're like, oh, you like it? I'm gonna sell it. And I think about just like you think about the hair industry, right? Who's selling hair
Yeah.
to us? Not us, not many. You got the Asian folks, they realize, oh, black people like hair. This is where they spend the money. Boom. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's levels to it, but like to your point, I think until we can recognize what we have, like especially the continent of Africa, we have shea butter and black soap, all these things. Just the beauty industry is like $1 billion industry. We need to really start looking at like what we have. The other thing is like there's a sponge. I'm sure it's grown across all over Africa, but there's a sponge. It's I forgot what it's called, but it's like actually a seed. And you open it up, it's like kind of a like an oh, I can't even think. It's an actual seed.
Yeah.
People like go all over the world and spend money for that because it's a good exfoliator. Like but people don't
Mhm.
know. Back home, they just grow it as a crop. Sometimes they may throw it away, but they don't understand. Like, man,
Yeah.
like that's money right there. But at the same time, Abe, you only know as much as you like as far as like maybe you've been exposed to. So
Sure.
if your mom and dad have
Yeah.
been farmers with this same product for over and over,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
go to the market every day and they don't know, oh, I could sell this to the United States, or oh, I
Yeah.
can sell this to big corporations. There's some money
Yeah.
there. They
Yeah.
don't know that. They're just going to keep doing it over and over. And then maybe,
Yeah.
oh, maybe Willie Joe comes and says, hey, I'll give you $10 for what
Yeah.
you have,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
probably should be paying you more because you own the land and you own all of that. So I think it's about educating ourselves. And I think I also say it's important when it comes to like the each one teach one. If you
Yeah.
know people that are in these positions or like in the
Mhm.
market or what have you, share with
Yeah.
them, like
Yeah.
show them how to succeed. You know,
Yeah.
the one thing, like me being in public health, they always say like the weakest group, as long as they are um being treated or given the resources that they need, everybody will succeed.
Yeah.
But if like it's just like having like that's just like a wealthy
Sure.
neighborhood, but then you have
Yeah.
like projects right in the middle. But if the
Yeah.
projects don't get the resources they need, the
Yeah.
whole neighborhood is not going to necessarily benefit, right? So
True.
when you
True.
give everybody resources that they need to succeed, everybody benefits as a whole. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the lens that we have to like lead with when it comes to like businesses and whatnot, instead of gatekeeping, instead of like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm afraid that they're going to take you have to be mindful a little bit, but why not create a collective? Abe, you're a
Yeah.
farmer, you're growing all of
Yeah.
these, but then maybe I'm good at
Sure.
business management. We can partner, we can do the
Yeah.
business management, we can get other people, then before you know it, everybody is making money. But at the same
Yeah.
time, it's a doggy dog world. Everybody
Yeah.
wants some money and they want quick money.
Exactly.
So
Well, folks, tonight we have been discussing culture appropriation versus appreciation. What's the line? It's been a great conversation with Andrea providing some great, good information. We're having a great discussion, right? It's like, so there's a 1 hour show and we are at the top of the hour and things like that. We don't want to drag it all night, but it's a good conversation. These are conversations, I say, we here at Inner Circle Podcast, we want to keep having this kind of a conversation, right? Because I think we have we have been playing the blame game for too long, right? When do we need to step up and take that accountability and start, just trying to take what's ours, right? Instead of it being appropriated. So, Andrea, man, it's been good having a discussion with you. It's been an eye
likewise.
opener, right? It's like you kind of provided some really really good definitions, some great, provided some good words. I think that is impacting our community. Our community really really need to step up. So, but as we wrap up tonight,
Mhm.
before I give you your last word, right? Miss B is saying Akan says we should all pack up and take our money and go invest in Africa. Well,
Shoot, you ain't never
before we do that, right? Before we do that, let us invest in each other here first, right? Let us invest in each other here first. As I always say, right? It is good, right? Once we can empower each other here, because hey, we live in the largest economy in the world, right? We live in the largest
for now.
economy in the world. I don't know, like it's about 30 trillion, right? So whatever it is, right? Let us try to get piece of that money first, and then we can take some of it and go on invest in Africa and make Africa rich, just like here. But anyways, as we wrap up tonight, Andrea, what's the message you want to leave with the folks out there who are listening to us for the last 1 hour 8 minutes about culture appropriation versus appreciation? What's that line, right? What's the message you want to take? You want folks to take away tonight from you?
A couple things. Protect what's yours, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And really understand the value of what you have, because one man one I would say one man's trash may be a treasure for someone.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about the access to resources that we have, especially like
Mm-hmm.
back home, oh my goodness, I always think about like I just really wish folks back home really knew like how valuable the continent of Africa is. But unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
our oppressors have oppressed us for so many years, and we're slowly kind of getting out of that. But I really think that um just know your worth, know where you come from, because it comes with a lot. Protect your stuff. I don't care if it's intellectual property. I don't care if it's in general, it's intellectual property. Just protect yourself. If you're making t-shirts, if you are making cards, whatever you're doing, protect it. If you don't know how, there's a lot of resources out there. You can go on YouTube, you can Google. But if you're making t-shirts, if you're making a clothing line, if you're printing, like making a book, a journal, anything, get that copywritten. If you have designs, get that trademarked. If you're working on patents,
Sure.
make sure that you are covered, because someone can take that and you will lose out on a lot. And then if you are meeting with people, like doing business conversations, create a confidentiality agreement that
Yeah.
basically kind of safeguards your work, because you can
Yeah.
talk to somebody and it could be somebody could take it tomorrow. So protect yourself at all
Yeah.
costs.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, thanks for that, right? That's a good message. That's a good parting message, right? The message I want to leave with folks tonight, right? I think you said it earlier. It's about endurance. We need to be able to endure, right? Black folks, we start a lot of things, right? And we don't end it. And sometimes when we don't end it, someone would take that idea and run with it. It's like, oh yeah, you had that great idea, right? You didn't finish it. Now it's out there. I'm gonna take it and appropriate it, right? And then,
Yeah.
so that's the message to me. I want to leave with folks, right? That's the first message, right? We need to endure. Endurance is key. We really need to try to endure. Second, we need to be passionate about our own stuff, our own things, right? I mean, the Caucasian stuff, to me, the reason why I admire them, man, they are so passionate. I mean, it's like Steve Jobs, he was so passionate about the iPhone, right? It's like Bill Gates was so passionate about Microsoft, all of those products Microsoft had, right? There's that passion. Third, right? The third thing I think folks need to kind of take away from here tonight is that we just need to support one another, man. We need to support one another. We don't do that enough in our community. We are in a habit of trying to tear each other down, trying to be, negative competition against one another. Man, there's so much resources out here. There's so much opportunities out here. If we can just work together as one, collaboration, coordination, all of this, just supporting one another. Hey, there can be like, that us just is like there's so much ideas, so much things out there. So I think, we need to endure. We need to appreciate one another. We need to appreciate our culture. The only way other people are going to appreciate us, we need to appreciate ourselves. And we need to just support one another. That's the message I want to leave tonight. So folks, thanks so much for joining us. My panelists, Andrea, man, was a great topic tonight. I think we hit it right out of the park, right? Only you and I trying to juggle this, but I think we hit it out of the park, folks. So thanks so much for joining us. We're going to be back here on Sunday for our social segment. Our social segment will be late. So tune in on Sunday at 8 p.m. And then now we are here like 4 days a week, Tuesday through Thursdays. Next week we have some guests coming at you, right? We have a great guest on Tuesday and Wednesday, man. You don't want to mix it, right? So please tune in. And this is a community show, Cycle Podcast. It's a movement, folks are listening to us, bringing these important information to our community, man. Don't tune out, right? Because you learn a lot here. We need to keep growing. We need to support one another. So thank you so much, folks. Thank you tonight. And Andrea, man, thank you so much for the good information you provided.
In a circle podcast where hearts unite,
Kudos to you for
sharing our truths,
that. Man,
bringing
get that
hope to
money,
the
Thank
do that
light.
business, scale it up.
Community
Be a big
strong,
time entrepreneur, big
never
time
alone.
businesswoman, and
Fail
happy.
forward.
Together as one,
Exactly.
we've
Feel forward.
created
That's another one.
all.
Feel forward. So,
So
but
join
thank
the
you so much.
conversation,
It's
let's
been
set the
great.
tone.
Chatting with you tonight. And folks,
In a
thanks for
circle
tuning in.
podcast where
We'll see you
love
guys
is
on
well
Sunday
known.
and then on Tuesday to Thursday. Thank you, Andrea. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.